Hello. In this video, we're going to continue looking at factoring trinomials, and specifically we're going to look at when the leading coefficient is 1. So in the last video, we were looking at a very similar trinomial to this one, except the middle piece was broken in a very particular way. It was written as z squared minus 7z plus 3z minus 21. And in that video, we factored out the GCF for each of these pieces. Like so. Saw that we could again factor out a GCF, z minus 7. And that would lead us to factoring this trinomial. So in this video, we're going to figure out how or why we would break up the middle in this way. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to look for two numbers that multiply to be our last term, in this case, negative 21, and that add to be our middle term, negative 4. And what I like to do is I like to go in order, making sure that I don't miss any pairs. So things that multiply to be negative 21 and add to be a negative number, well, that would be 1 and negative 21. 2 doesn't divide 21, so we'd have to go to 3. And then we don't have any more pairs. We go 4, doesn't work, 5, doesn't work, 6, it doesn't work, and then 7, we're right back at our last pair. And if we add across, we see this is negative 20, and then negative 4, exactly what we wanted. Now, you may be thinking, okay, well, in this first case, we split it up as minus 7z and plus 3z. So what would have happened if instead we put it in the order that we have it? Well, let's see. We'll still try to pull out the GCF of our first two terms, which is again z, and that'll leave us with z plus 3. And in these second two terms, we'll pull out negative 7, and that also leaves us with z plus 3. We can now pull out the greatest common factor, z plus 3, and we're left with z minus 7. So it didn't actually matter what order we break up these two middle terms in, as long as we pick the two middle terms that multiply to be the last number and add to be the middle term. So let's try another example. X squared minus x minus 30. So I want two numbers that multiply to be negative 30 and add to be negative 1. So again, I like to go in order. And I know that since the two numbers are adding together to be negative, whatever my bigger term is, or my bigger factor, is going to be the negative 1. So 1 and negative 30 go in order, 2 and negative 15, 3 and negative 10, 4, well 4 doesn't divide it, but 5 sure does, minus 6. And then if I said 6, that would be 6 and 5, and I know I'm now repeating myself. So I have my options. I can just go straight across and check them. But if you were adding as you go, you could figure out which one was the correct pair. So our pairing is 5 and negative 6. And as we saw in the last example, it doesn't matter which order we pick, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick it in this order that we have it. So we have x squared, 5x, minus 6x, minus 30. Now, we'll take out the GCF, from each. Since these are now matching, I can take out the GCF x plus 5, and I'm left with x minus 6. And I've now factored it. No guess and check required. We just go through our list and use whatever our pair is to break up our middle term. And that's how we can factor trinomials with a leading coefficient of 1.